This is the OMG Book Show with William O'Day, episode number 7. And 7 is heaven, and heaven is 7. Oh no.
Welcome to the OMG Book Show, where it's all about taking you into the brains of fantastic authors. No scalpels required. It's more than an interview, it's an experience. And now, your host, William O'Day.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the show. You're probably still in total shock and amazement at whoever that guest singer was at the top of the show. I don't know who it was. He just came through in the dark of night and left that beautiful gift for all of us. Yes. Moving on. So today's show, we are going to be chatting with the excellent, amazing author, Mark Tufo. He is the best-selling author of the Zombie Fallout series, and he has a number of other series that are also, I believe, related to that series. And it's just an amazing interview. And in it, some of the things we talk about are how Zombie Fallout got started, the first book, and how it was originally intended to be something quite different, something that went by the name of Zombie Follies. I think you can imagine that would be very different, right? And he also tells us about the day that he almost quit writing. He was 1 second away from throwing it all away. But then something happened and saved his career. So we'll find out all about that and so much more. So, surgical gloves on, scalpel in hand, let's get started. Today we have the distinct pleasure of speaking with Mark Tufo, best-selling author of the Zombie Fallout series. Mark, welcome to the show.
Hey, Wilt, I appreciate you having me on, man. Thank you.
Hey, awesome. And we were just chatting a little bit before the show. I'm kind of joking a little bit about both being parents. I have a small window of quiet here, which the girls just left and all the screaming and sort of chaos left with them. But Mark was saying, and tell me if I'm getting this right, all his kids have left his house now, and it was hard at first, but then got easier. How did that go?
Oh my gosh, when my youngest went off to college and that empty nester syndrome thing hits you, I still walk around and I feel like I'm personally 21. So to have all my kids out of the house was strange. But like when he went to college, it was sort of devastating. I mean, it was, talk about adjustment, going from a loud, boisterous house, to all of a sudden just this quiet. All we could hear was the bully snoring, But I'll tell you, once the adjustment period's over, boy, it's nice. It's liberating. I don't want to say to get your life back, because I really enjoyed raising the kids and having them in the house, but the freedom of it, I guess, was pretty nice to have back.
There is, yes, with kids in the house, there is a certain level of moment by moment attention and responsibility, right?
Oh, without a doubt. I mean, obviously, when they're younger, even more so, and as they gain independence, you get more back of your free time. But geez, once they're out of the house and you can pretty much do, whatever you want within the bounds of the law. I mean, it's
right.
Nice.
Well, yeah, it sounds like you have I guess, how long did that period of adjustment last for you, where you were kind of getting into the new reality?
My wife got through it a lot quicker than I did. I bet you it probably took me a few months that, the mind screw, until I kind of felt normal.
Okay, right. And just in case your kids end up listening to this, or I'm assuming my kids may at some point as well, our discussions of liberation and all of that is all within the context of we totally are devoted and love you, clearly.
Oh no, they know. It's no secret, so it's no big deal.
Right on. Well, thank you for the reassurance of what I have to look forward to in the not too distant future, probably sooner than I'd like. But I wanted to get back to how I usually like to start interviews and find out, how did you get your start in storytelling? When did it begin for you?
It started a long ago. I've always enjoyed writing. You remember back in school when you had to do a book report or anything writing assigned, and most of your classmates would kind of like groan, like, "Oh my God, I got to write more than 14 words in a row." I was kind of secretly cool. I enjoyed it. I never at the time equated it to something I wanted to do. It was something I didn't mind doing. And then in college, I had a creative writing class And honestly, the only reason I took it was because I needed the credits. But the teacher gave us an assignment where we had to write something in a journal each and every day, whether it was something that actually happened or whether it was made up. And that was kind of the first time that door to truly writing was opened. And I had actually started writing a book in college. I didn't finish it for I think another 15 years, but it was definitely kind of the first inkling of getting me into the writing world.
Yeah, that's good. That daily practice started opening the door.
Yeah, and I've told people that like it's weird. The more you write, the more you want to write. Kind of that kind of equation.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. The brain can be like a muscle, so the more you use it, the stronger it gets, right?
Yeah, that's definitely a safe assumption.
So I had a question about that book that took 15 years to complete. Was that the first book in the Zombie Fallout series?
It was actually Indian Hill, the first Indian Hill.
Okay. And then a follow-up question to that I had was, did those reports that you did in elementary school, did they have any kind of the same flavor as the ZF books?
I don't think so. I'd love to kind of wrangle one up, but I don't think there was too much creative flair in them. Maybe there was. I don't. Honest to God, I don't remember.
Yeah, it's been too long ago. I wish we could find those grade school teachers from what was it, English Lit grade 8 or something.
Yeah, that'd be funny. Like if my teacher was like, and now he's writing books, and if she was still around.
That would be cool to get called. Yeah, maybe to get a little email. So if you're out there, one of Mark's old, long in the past English Lit teachers, give him an email, shoot him an email. Hopefully he could come and read a passage for you. But you might want to check out the books first too.
Yeah, it sure wouldn't be any of my high school teachers. I was truly an unremarkable student by my high school years.
They just hadn't dusted the dirt off the diamond yet. They didn't know.
Oh, is that what it is? Yeah, we'll go with that. That sounds good. We'll go with that.
Yeah, sure. So one of the things that surprised me about reading Zombie Fallout was just how quickly it hooked me. And I wanted to read a couple of lines in particular that really did that. One was kind of like put the bait out there, and then the next one, a few pages later, set the hook. So, yeah,
this is funny. I'm pretty sure I know what you're going to say, but this is usually where I've got you, or you're like, oh, this dude, So,
all right. Well, I'll read the two lines, and then you tell me if they're the ones you're thinking of.
Sure.
Awesome. Well, one of the reasons I love this first one is that it works on so many different levels. It's the first line of the first book that you wrote in the Zombie Fallout series. It's the first line of an entire series, and it's also the first line in the action that's happening within that book. And here is that first line. This wasn't supposed to be how it began. Damn it. And that for me was a great, just amazing opening line because it's, obviously it works on different levels, and it's just such an introduction to what clearly must be your humor, at least as an author, and I'm guessing in real life. Is that right?
Yeah, it's safe to say. I walk through life most of the time with a smile on my face. And, the opening line, I don't know how big of a zombie fan you are. I very much am. But how many movies I've watched and books I've read and a zombie apocalypse has started and people are like, what's going on? It's like, everybody knows that people are getting their faces chewed off. It's a zombie apocalypse, So I wanted my characters to be aware of that right off the bat.
Yeah, and that is another feature of what makes it fun is you're in media res, I think is the fancy authorly term for it. Like you're thrown right into the shit is happening, and now we have a family, Michael Talbot and his family, trying to figure out how to react. Which brings me to my second point. So this just happened. I think Michael was about to take a shower in the book, and this is the first few pages, just so readers out there, listeners, can get a feel for where I'm going. And then there's banging on the door, and he goes to check, and it's just your typical door. It's got the little peephole thing, and he takes a peek inside and exclaims, "I see a tongue. Some asshole is licking my peephole."
And this is where you either put the book down or you buy all 10. So
for me, I was like, that set the hook, and I was like, oh, this is crazy. I'm loving it.
That was definitely a line I figured you were going to refer to. It is very much a lynch point in the series. Like I've already beat that dead horse, but you know what kind of humor you're in for in terms of. I mean, it's definitely a serious series, but there are fun moments. And we actually had that T-shirt done, the Peephole T-shirt. We did two runs of it, and it sold out within days. And I still get people wanting to do it. And we might. It's just kind of a pain in the butt.
Do you guys do like Teespring or one of those kind of like print on order demand things?
Yeah, I want to say yeah, but the problem was then they print up all these shirts. We get all the orders, people pay for them, and then they send boxes and boxes of shirts to our house, and then we have to get rid of them, and that's sort of kind of a pain in the butt. But then we have two bulldogs that think anything that's laying on the ground is theirs to roll around in, and it's like you're trying to keep bulldog hair off 1,000 T-shirts. Kind of a pain in the butt.
Right. Some fans might like the extra free souvenir, but maybe not all.
I would imagine. Yeah, I don't want to go through and have to try to figure out who that would be as well.
Right. Exactly. Cool. Well, so that it sounds like that was one of the Peephole line was one of the big ones that I guess you've heard fans mention before as a favorite, huh?
Yeah. What's funny, when I was first kind of noodling the whole idea of the Zombie Fallout series, initially it was going to be almost a comedy, more a comedic effect. Like the title was actually going to be Zombie Follies. And then, I started writing the book, and it's just hard to be complete comedy when people are dying and being ripped up and things like that. So it definitely shifted into almost your more traditional dark, but with some lighter moments. Okay.
Yeah. And I could definitely feel that, because there is pretty grisly, and detailed descriptions of the kind of carnage that you would expect would occur in these situations. But then you also have the kind of staccato, sort of almost like bullets firing of Michael Talbot kind of reacting or reflecting on the situation in absolutely hilarious ways.
And I think that's, I don't know that I necessarily set out for that at the beginning, but I think that is definitely something that the fan base has really latched onto, that I can bring you terror, so you're way up here, heart pounding, you're freaking out, and then all of a sudden, the next page you're like, hopefully laughing, or getting a nice chuckle or something along those lines. And just the juxtaposition of the two emotions side by side really kind of gets people.
Yeah. And I think, just being an author that can elicit any kind of emotion in the reader is first and foremost an amazing thing. And clearly you've got that aspect to the writing down.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it.
Awesome. Well, I wanted to ask you about something that came up in the reading that I did before the interview. It seems you have a long and sordid history in corporate America before you escaped to become a writer. So take us back. How did you get from point A to point B in your career?
Okay, so most of my life was in the blue collar world. And then I was in the Marines. I did a stint there, got out of there, I went into the post office, which was strange, which was probably actually more dangerous than the Marine Corps, but that's, and then, I wanted a better life for my family, and we were eating, we had a place, but we certainly weren't gaining ground. We were holding our own mostly. And so I told my wife I'd like to go back to school. So, I went back to school for computers, which were pretty hot at the time. And, the day I graduated from computer school, I got a nice job with this small firm for their tech support, or not even tech support, but just their entire tech department, because it was a small company. And, it was wonderful. I had 3 great years there. And we started to prosper for the most part. Then 9/11 happened, and the world kind of got canted on its side. And for whatever reason, the tech industry got destroyed, and I got laid off. So that was one of the first layoffs, and it was like, oh my God.
Yeah, that's tough.
And then, it was tough. I got a job fairly quickly. I think I got picked up, but I did Home Depot for a few minutes, and then I got on to this company Paychecks, which in terms of they were a good company. I'm not, but I was not a fit for them, and it was heart-wrenching to go to that place every day.
Now, how long were you sentenced to that?
Oh God, it feels like 15 years, but I don't think it was more than 3-4 months, and then I got a job with Citigroup, which wonderful job. I was in HR for Citi. Incredible boss who I'm still friends with now. She was from New York, so it was funny. I'm from Boston, so we kind of had to figure out our dialects when we were talking to each other.
Right.
And then for I even from Citi, I wanted to launch to something better, and I got another job. And I wasn't there 2 months, got laid off again. So I left Citi on my own, went to another job, got laid off, and I was like, oh my God. But this layoff was the brutal one because there was a downturn. It was the housing bubble when everything blew up. And,
okay. Yeah, we're talking about 2008 or so, somewhere in there.
Yeah. Dude, I could not. I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to take like 2 weeks off. Maybe I'll just relax, chill out a little bit, a bit of stress. But 2 weeks turned into 2 months, 2 months into 4 months. I mean, I'm getting to the point where my not disability benefits, but payroll benefits are about to cancel out unemployment. I mean, I was stressed, and this was the time frame when I wrote the first Zombie Fallout. It was because I was reading a ton because I wasn't sleeping, and then I started writing because I found it was very cathartic in getting rid of some of the negative feelings.
Right.
And then I no sooner finished with the first Zombie Fallout, and I got hired on with this company, and TIC, good company, energy company, and then I kept writing because I enjoyed it. I was having fun. I certainly wasn't selling anything. It wasn't even the point really. But then I got up to about Zombie Fallout 3 and I started to get an audience. And it was like, wow. It went from like scratch money to we were actually paying some bills with it.
That's awesome. And when was that? What year about was that?
10? Let's go with 2010. Yeah.
Okay. So this was kind of when I guess indie publishing was it was still pretty new at that stage, right?
Still pretty new. And I mean, definitely starting to crush it. And then by 2011, when I put out Zombie Fallout 4, it went from side money to like, holy crap. We could maybe do this. I could maybe make a career out of this. So I actually, I gave my 2-week notice to corporate America in July of 2011, and I have been terrified ever since.
Hey, I was about to say congratulations, but I don't know. Is that a qualified congratulations?
I am not a salesman, and sales terrify. And my life depends on sales. My livelihood, not my life, my livelihood.
Right.
So it's scary. It's a different universe from what I grew up with, for sure.
Right. It's definitely not the punch in and punch out and IBM or whoever, GM, General Motors is going to give you your guaranteed paycheck.
And every Friday, this is what we're going to get, and or not, and this is just different.
Yeah, I completely agree. There has been like a generational change in the workforce over the past, 10, 20, 30 years, but it's no longer, one job for your whole life, one career, one company. It's not like that anymore at all. No,
I mean, it's weird. My dad owned a paving company. That's where I did a lot of my work growing up. Did road construction, but my father-in-law worked at Texaco. I'm sorry, his entire life. It just there's no corporate loyalty anymore. There's no employee loyalty. They'll drop us if they can save a buck. We'll move if we can gain a buck. That kind of thing. It's definitely a different generation.
Yeah, I agree completely. So you made it through all of that and got to your current career, successful career. If you could go back and tell your younger self, that younger writer who isn't where you are today, if you could tell him one thing, what would it be?
I buy stock in Microsoft. No.
Hey, go with the sure thing.
Yeah. Just keep plugging away. I'm not. This might be news to you. It's not news. It won't be news to some of my listeners. But there was a day It was after I just put out Zombie Fallout 1. We couldn't afford editing. We had a crappy cover, stock image probably. And I wasn't selling, but I think I sold 3 copies in 7 months or something like that. But then Zombie Fallout, because it was zombies, started to get a little bit of an audience. And the initial reviews were kind of all right. And then I started to get like hammered. I mean, hammered from grammar Nazis and people that were picking up my editing flaws. That self-editing was not a good idea.
Right,
so everybody knows, Zombie Fallout 1 has been professionally edited at this point. But back then...
So, hey, people out there, if you wrote one of those terrible reviews, he may have deserved it then, but he doesn't now. So go check your review.
Yeah. The point being that... it was like, what am I subjecting myself to this for? I don't want to be abusing myself. So I'd walk downstairs to my wife's office and I was like, I'm going upstairs and I am removing my book from Amazon. I'm just done. It's not worth it. I don't need random people from around the country freaking slamming me up and down the wall. I just,
Oh, no.
Who needs that? I haven't made enough money to buy a cup of coffee and people are freaking tearing me new ones, So
I think Dirk Patton mentioned in an interview a while back with him, he said something like, sometimes you get reviews that just go so far beyond the scope of just simply not liking a book. It's like you killed their dog, you stole their wife, you burned down their house, and they're there to get back at you.
Brutal, just brutal, And I was seriously, I'm walking upstairs to turn it off, and this was the days when AOL was still big. It goes ding, and you've got mail. This one dude had reached out. I remember his name because I'm still in contact with him, Richard Baker, and he was like, forget about the haters. Maybe your book isn't the best edited thing out there, but you tell a hell of a story. Just keep sticking with it. And it was that one guy, 1 minute before the deadline, like the governor had called and he was going to release the prisoners kind of thing, So I'd tell that younger, I almost forgot the question. I tell that younger version to just keep plugging away, don't have some faith.
That's awesome. And I agree with you. I've had a couple of readers who, and it's interesting. It's almost a symbiotic relationship in that way. But I've had a couple of readers who've reached out to me at a few low points and just expressed the same kind of encouragement. And it does. It's just like, it's just enough to help you be like, okay, I can do this. I can stick with it. I can get back into it. And on the other hand, saying it's like a symbiotic relationship, I've also heard quite a few more readers mention, and I think I read a few reviews of yours that kind of reflected the same thing, is these books have helped me through a really dark time in my life. And that's a pretty amazing kind of relationship to have, huh?
It's humbling to hear, that I know personally I've had some books be crutches in my life, and that now in turn some of my books have helped other huge. It's humbling, it's surreal.
Yeah, I agree.
Sure.
You mentioned, I'm wondering, some of those books are, I'd read in a couple of places that Stephen King is a big influence on your writing and passion. Which, is there one book of his that you would say stands higher for you than the rest?
There's so many of them I enjoyed. I definitely loved The Stand. Insomnia was huge. The Tommy Knockers just got me thinking a bunch. If you can believe it or not, because that book terrified me for sure.
Yeah.
It's obviously some people get down on some of Stephen King's stuff, and obviously it's like anybody, some of it's better than others, but I every time I crack open a Stephen King book, I'm just psyched. It's just fun to read for me.
Oh yeah, and I agree completely. It's and I think it's interesting. I've heard interviews, or maybe it was read them, with Stephen King, where he kind of talks about, in a self-effacing way, his books as if they're like, only of a fast food caliber, and it's just cheap entertainment or whatever. But I'm like, it's entertaining. And that's enough. It's awesome.
What's the first thing you buy when you go to the movies, man? Big thing of buttered popcorn. I got no problem with that.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's perfect. So why mess with it?
Right. I agree.
And speaking of Stephen King and the traditional publishing round, I recall an article I've read of yours, and it was an interview from some time ago, where you had mentioned getting traditionally published as being one of your goals. Is that still something that you want to do?
I have been. It's weird. Authors, we live on an island. We need, I don't know about affirmation, and we need it. We want to feel like we're needed and people want to read our stuff and that it's worthwhile. And if you can't get a publisher, you kind of feel like you haven't succeeded. But I know, because we tried for years, a couple years at first to get traditionally published, and we had queries out to everybody. We just didn't do it, and you feel kind of like I didn't really make it yet, but looking back now, if we had been traditionally published, at least at that point, I never would have been able to leave corporate America. It's just the monetary differences, depending on the publishing deal or advances or lack thereof, we just wouldn't have been able to leave corporate America. And then, so it kind of worked out in this respect. But to have seen my books in a brick and mortar store, it was definitely a dream come true. I got a picture of me. I'm at Barnes and Noble, like sneaking my selfie with holding my book up. I should have signed it. That would have been cool. But that was a highlight for me in terms of this career, for sure.
Oh, wait. So you did, it sounds like you did, for at least a book or more, get traditionally published. Is that right?
Yeah, for 2 books.
Okay. Which 2 were those?
Indian Hill 1 and 2. Okay.
And then, but you were able to take the rights back and continue on after that?
Actually, it's still published by them. You might be able to find it in stores. You might be able to not. I know that books have a shelf life in brick and mortar stores. I had another book, Tim, was traditionally published, but it's a small press. I've since got the rights back to that. In terms of traditional press, most of my titles go through Audible, so that's a traditional publisher, or Tanto Media has rights to a few. So definitely got my audio rights have been traditionally published. Okay, so you're fully in the hybrid sort of author realm, it sounds like. Definitely fully immersed in that. Right on. Well, one of the other things I wanted to ask you about was just in looking at the previews and some of the reviews I've read for subsequent books after your first book in the Zombie Fallout series, is it sounds like it goes from being a kind of a typical zombie style genre book to something far more wide, expansive, and genre bending. Was that something that you intended to do from the outset, or did that develop over time? I'm pretty sure I know which piece you're talking about. I'm trying not to. I don't even know if you know yet, if you only read the first one. Some of the ideas at the very get-go, one of my older brother was very involved and was reading it and enjoyed it, and every once in a while would throw a suggestion out there. And some of it I would take, and some of it I would just kind of smile and go, "Oh, that's good," and then like stop giving me those kind of ideas. But it's funny. I'm trying to answer a question without saying any spoilers.
Is there? I don't know how much of a spoiler is, I don't know. It's hard to know.
An element you will discover in book 2 that zombie traditionalists poo-pooed, for lack of a better term. And some people embraced it, or some people were like questioned what I was going to do with it, but then in turn ended up enjoying it immensely. So.
Yeah, that's cool. So do you think that, did you make that choice because you feel like you would have run out of steam had you not kind of taken it in those new adventurous directions?
Well, originally Zombie Fallout was going to be 1 book. It was in my head. It was just going to be one and done. I was going to tell the story of the Talbots. They weren't going to make it out of their homestead, that kind of thing. And just that was my plan, because I never intended to be on your show, never intended to leave corporate America, never intended to have sales. But then a funny thing happened when I was writing the first one. I was like, I'd like to tell this story in 3 books. And then 3 became 4, 4 became 6, 6 became 10, And actually, I'm handing off Zombie Fallout 11 to my editor probably next week. So go figure.
Awesome. That's really cool. I'm always totally impressed and inspired when I get to talk with authors such as yourself that have these long running series that are able to personally maintain the enthusiasm and fresh perspective, and then also keep the readers on the other side coming through. So congratulations on that.
Thank you. And, people have asked me, when are you going to end the series? And I've just always said, when it's not fun anymore. If I'm not having fun writing it, you're going to notice, if it's all forced. And so when I'm not having fun and you're not having fun reading it, then, we'll call it a day for sure.
Yeah. Well, we're 11 episodes in, and from what I've, or at least 10 episodes in that have been released, I've read fans' reviews that clearly indicate that from the fan side, at least, people aren't tired of it yet. So keep going.
I know. I mean, it's nice, because it's fun for me to write for sure, but it's fun for me to also be supporting our lives and being able to eat and afford, mortgage. I go get bills just like everybody else. So it's wonderful. It's just a totally different existence than I figured I would have, but man, I'm freaking enjoying the hell out of it.
That's awesome. Well, let's contemplate an alternate timeline for a second. So let's say, what if, I think you said his name was Jonathan Baker or something. What if that man did not get to you before you got to your AOL account? What would have been the alternate reality, Mark Tufo, his career? Would he be back in corporate America?
Man, this is where the expletives would like to be unleashed. But wow. I mean, I would have left. I probably wouldn't have left TIC. I would have stopped writing. I would have had the one and done Zombie Fallout. Who knows if anybody would have ever read it? Maybe. Let's see. Maybe the fates would have intervened at some point, and I would have, a lot of maybe started reading ZF1 and like, hey, write another one. We want to see what's going on. But that's it's not a path I choose to kind of contemplate.
That's good for your own mental sanity.
Right.
Well, thank goodness for that gentleman, and also just the advent of self-publishing, because it sounds like that had a part also in bringing you success, which is awesome. Yeah,
I mean, I'm not kidding you. For a while, I saved them, but I had a stack of rejection letters, probably about a ream thick of paper. And without it was my wife actually. When I was kind of like down in the dumps. I mean, there's only so many times you can have people go, no, you really just don't have the chops, and every time you open up that letter, it's just like another little dagger to the heart, and
seriously bleeding you out slowly but surely.
Yeah, death by 1,000 cuts. And it was finally my wife. She was looking into the self-pubbing thing. I didn't really understand it or know about it or care. And she's like, let's just throw it up on Amazon. And it was Indian Hill 1 that was the first book up, and that was that was also an unedited stock image cover, just horrible assemblage of words, and but it was cool. It was still simultaneously one of the coolest days of my life. Like, there's my book on Amazon, kind of thing.
Yeah, that is cool.
Yeah, without self-pubbing or Facebook, my career probably does not exist.
Well, thank goodness for modern technologies, because I've heard that story obviously from you just now, but I've heard similar stories from other authors that indie publishing has just opened up kind of an avenue of life, a life path that didn't really exist before, which is just amazing.
Yeah, it's wonderful, and it's tough too. It's not. I get a lot of queries from folks. I swear that they feel like the minute they write a book, they're going to be J.K. Rowling rich. It's like, I'm like, dude, that is not how it works. That would be wonderful, But I mean, I've got over 30 something books out, and I don't think I've made the interest on J.K. Rowling's bank statement yet, So.
Well, we'll check with her accountant. We want to verify this. We want this show to be technically accurate.
Oh, I'm sure there's a lot of zeros in her friggin' bank statements, but it's a process. It's a lot of work. It's even when you think somebody has instantaneously made. It's funny. I'm sorry, I'm not trying to diverge here, but I don't know if you know Chris Philbrook, if you've ever interviewed him, or we became friends a couple years back on Facebook, and I'm like, wow, this guy came out of nowhere, and then I met him back in September. We did a Granite Con in New Hampshire. Very nice, awesome dude, nice family and everything. And he's like, no, man, I've been writing for 10 years. And I was like, oh, it's like, wow, I thought you just came out of nowhere. He's like, no, man, I've been doing this as long as you. And it's like, oh, so it's just, even somebody you think has done it overnight has not. They've been working their butt off for a good long while.
And so many of authors that you mentioned like that will also, if you get to talking with them, often bring up like, yeah, and then there's the 7 novels that are in my, in the bottom of the trunk that will never be seen, but took 5 years of their life and all of that learning to get where they are today.
That is true. I mean, even Stephen King's is 1 million words before you write a book that's worthwhile,
Holy moly. Yeah. It feels like a lot, but I guess once you get writing and time goes by, it adds up, huh?
Yeah. I mean, I can see the genesis of my writing since I started. Like, it's tough for me now. I mean, Indian Hill 1 will always be my baby. It's where I started. But like, some of the writing is just, to me, I almost want to cringe. Like when Mike Talbot goes, golly gee, I'm like, So
is that because like that feels weird for him to say as a character, or you just think it's not good dialogue, or what do you mean?
It's not good dialogue, and it was my first time ever putting pen to paper in terms of a full length story, and you can see by Indian Hill 3 and 4 and 5. I mean, it really starts to hit its stride, and I feel developed as a writer. I'm not going to say I'm freaking awesome and perfect, but I personally have improved as my books have gone on.
Yeah, and it's
hopefully people think.
Yeah, I think it's a natural sort of process of learning the craft. And you've written, did you say like 30 books or so at this point?
I think I'm somewhere around there for sure.
That is essentially amazing. Like, I mean, I wonder how many traditionally published authors in kind of the bygone age would ever reach even half of that number over a career,
It's not the same anymore, but a lot of the traditional folks, definitely back in the heyday of the Big Six, they got hellacious advances. They could afford to kind of lay back and not take their time, but maybe take their time writing their novel, 2-3 years kind of dealio.
Right.
It's not the same. I write to eat. I want to make sure I can pay the electric bill. I got food for the mutts, that kind of thing. So it's a continual process. I don't stop.
Right.
I don't feel like I can. Now that I'm my own boss, I'm an ass to myself, you sit there and work kind of deal. No, but it's my birthday, and so.
Wait, are you the worst boss you've ever had?
I would imagine, because I don't give myself any time off. I'm just a jerk.
Well, I guess readers and fans out there, we all appreciate the jerky boss you are to yourself.
And trust me, man, I appreciate every reader and fan I have, because they're the ones allowing me to do this.
Very good. Well, you mentioned a few times in the interview bulldogs. I think you have 2 bulldogs. Is that right?
I do.
So you're clearly, you love dogs. I do too. We have a bull. Just had a bull mastiff, have a boxer now. But nice. I wanted to find out, how do you feel about cats?
It's funny because I write about cats and not in the most loving way. And I have to explain myself. I am not Mike Talbot. We do share a few similarities, but for the most part, I like cats. I have no problem with them. We actually we had a wonderful, I'm not going to call it wonderful, she was a pain in the ass, but we had Patches for almost 21 years. She just passed this summer. But, and she was a very affectionate cat, very loving. I lost more sleep to that cat than all of my kids combined, but she was a good cat, and I have no problem with cats personally.
Okay, yeah. See, I personally, while I'm just trying to love cats, I had a traumatic childhood experience with the meanest cat that has ever lived. I think I was like 6 years old or something at my grandparents' house, and I think I had a little geologist rock hammer splitting rocks, and probably without eye protection. It was back in the day. And then I turn and what was her name? Babu, or I can't remember her name. Anyway, this black cat is like 5 feet away from me. Tail, hair, puffied, hissing like crazy. And I just take off running, screaming across the yard, and she's chasing me. I think it was Thanksgiving, because the rest of the family sitting inside at the bay window, and they look out and they just see me screaming, streaking across the yard with this devil cat chasing me behind.
Well, they are a fickle beast for sure.
Something about me, or at least that day, it just didn't work for that cat. And I've been trying to recover ever since.
Oh, I don't blame you. It's funny. I'm not petrified of dogs. I was about, I want to say 7, and I was the school was out, but I was in the school playground playing, and I don't know where this dog came from, man. It was a Saint Bernard. So obviously an enormous dog, probably easily doubled 2.5 times my weight. And I see this monster coming. He's coming across the playground to me, and I'm like, I'm dead kid walking, so I'm freaking screaming. I'm running as fast as my little legs will pump, and I get to a little, I don't know, probably a 3-foot chain link fence, and I damn near skied it, and got away from this dog. I'm sure I'm 92% positive this dog just probably wanted to play, but I'd never seen a dog that huge, and then the jowls are flapping up in the air and drool's coming out of this thing. I figured he wanted to eat me, so I'm surprised I don't have a dog thing. Although Doberman Pinschers scare the bejesus out of me.
Doberman Pinschers they communicate business to me. Like, just looking at them, it's all like muscle and attitude.
Yeah, I had when I was growing up, when I was a little kid again, and they had 2 Dobies, and they were on chains. And so you got the house on the left-hand side, and you got the walkway, and then the dogs are on the right-hand side, and they're chained, and their muzzles come right up to the walkway. So as long as you're on the walkway, you're fine. But you'd get on that walkway, and that's just like, whoa, 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 whoa. And you've got like 3 inches of clearance from them snapping jaws, and that's, those dogs terrify me. I don't want anything to do with them.
It seems like it could be, I think we're getting to some psychological depth here. You have that experience in your youth, and now you have 2 English bulldogs in your house. And I don't know if those 2 dogs could be any more opposite on the physical spectrum, at least.
And you're right. I was always for big dogs. I just loved big dogs. We had them for a long time. And then we got this Rottweiler mix. Big, awesome monster. We call them Rex. It's like T-Rex. And just big, lovable, dope. The kids would ride him. That's how much he didn't give a crap. And then one day, man, my wife made a roast or something. I can't remember. But it was horrible. I know it was just this fatty lump of grossness. So we were like, screw this. We bundled all the kids up, and we probably went out to McDonald's or something. But Rex, in the meantime, it jumped up on the counter and grabbed it. And then when we got home, I didn't know, nobody knew this. I walked by the kitchen table and I hear this rumble, like it sounded like a train freight was trying to come through. And I finally figured out, and Rex is under the table guarding this piece of meat. Like, he was going to rip my leg off. I was terrified. I mean, his is 125-pound dog, and
oh man, it sounds like shit got real for Rex then.
It got so real. I brought him to the pound after that. I was terrified of this dog and what it could do to one of my kids, because they were all young at the time. And I'm like, I'm looking at this dog, and he would have bit me if I had gone for that roast, and that was unacceptable.
Absolutely, so, yeah. That's crossing a line. I mean, that kind of implicit trust between dog and human.
And that's when I'd said, we got little kids in the house, and we went right down to the smaller breeds. We actually got a Basset Hound, the most stupid, lovable dog we ever got. And then our first bully was a rescue. We couldn't afford a bully for the life of us, but it was a rescue, so we got it for free. And he was just such a wonderful dog. I fell in love with the breed, and I just love them. They're just big, goofy, lovable, loyal dopes.
Man, they are just incredibly cute. Like when you see a bulldog puppy on the street, it's almost like zombies going for brains there, because the people just gather around in droves.
They're just so expressive, you know, and they just love you. They just do. And it's great. Even last night I was in my office doing some late work, and I got one at my feet and one's on my left-hand side. They're farting up a storm, but it was still, this is nice. This is wonderful. I like this feeling. Right.
I mean, and no one ever said, for all the benefits that dogs bring to the relationship, that they don't also bring a few disadvantages.
Yeah, that being one of them.
We have our boxer. He's mostly boxer, part something else, I'm not sure, but totally lovable, amazing, similar kind of way. We just love him to death. But man, he wants to play, and maybe a bulldog should be in our future, because I think they're more relaxed. But this guy, like if I sit at my desk, or I have a standing desk too, if I'm here for more than 30 minutes and I look down and he's right there looking up at me with the most intensely interested, like, is it time? Is it time? Are we going to play?
It's wonderful, because at one time, for some unknown freaking reason, I wanted an Australian cattle dog. And if you know anything about them, they are super hyper and need like attention like 23 hours out of a day. And you got to have them running around. And I can't afford that level of a commitment.
That's right.
So the bulldogs are like, yeah, we're just going to take a nap now, so it's pretty cool.
All right, I'm making a note right now for future dog companions. Bulldogs are at the top of the list.
They're a wonderful animal.
Well, I wanted to also ask you about, I ran into this last night when I was looking through references and things, and I found your Zombie Fallout music video, and it was so awesome. And I'll put a link in the show notes just in case people that are listening haven't seen it. I think I had heard that it is a kind of a promo tool for a potential series that might go to a network or something. Is there any progress on that at this point?
I'm not sure which one we got a few teasers out there. There's a book teaser, and then there's a couple of videos of, I know there's a music video one of the producers had made. There's a few out there.
Okay. I'm like the one, or maybe there's more like this, but one where you were being Michael Talbot and you're in a backyard and there's like the Nene Whip Nene song is going, which is awesome.
That was a kick in the pants. The producer was putting together this teaser as something he could use as part of they got a special word for it out in Los Angeles. I can't remember, but in terms of a package, a pitch package, maybe something like that. So I said I would love to come out there and be a zombie. That would be a blast. He's like, no, you come out, you're gonna be Mike Talbot. I was like, no, man, that's not what I want. I just want to be a zombie in the background ambling around. And then he had this friend Weston, who he's another jarhead, awesome guy. He's like, no, I'd have Weston be Mike, but he's too pretty. And then I'm like, so in my head, I'm like, he's implying that I'm not. I was like, well, I don't know if I should be offended or what, but screw it. If you notice, if you watch any of the videos, I have no speaking parts because I don't act. But
but I think you wield that shovel with conviction.
Oh, dude, that was one of the most terrifying things I have ever done in my life. They called him Zombie 1, but the actor that was all made up like that, I mean, he literally was standing maybe 3 inches away from the tip of that shovel. Like if at any point I had slipped, I would have crushed him. And I must have swung that shovel, I'm not even exaggerating, 45, 50 times. Like literally, I had a bruise on my left-hand side where the backhand came and hit me. I was terrible. I mean, I dried my hands off every freaking take to make sure I held on to that shovel. And this dude didn't flinch. Like I mean, anybody with somebody swinging a shovel as hard as they can would have been like, I'm out. I'm not doing it. You're not paying me enough to do this crap.
So it sounds like that guy was at what are they, the method actors, where he's just like totally in it.
Totally in it. It was crazy. In terms of where the show's going, I was just out in LA like 2 weeks ago. I was meeting with some folks. I mean, like, I can't do names. I get like clauses and stuff, but like people, if I started rattling off projects they have done, you'd be like, oh crap. Wow.
Oh, that's cool.
That was intense. I know there's money involved now, and money is always a big deal. You can always say, hey, I'm going to make a movie, but unless you've got some financial backing, nobody really cares. So I know we get that. It's a slow process. If it happens, awesome, fantastic, great, but I'm not holding my breath. Let's go that way. I'm not going to count any pennies until the, checks in the mail, all that kind of crap.
Right. Until you look one day in your bank account and you're like, J.K. Rowling money.
Yeah. I mean, I would. Don't get me wrong. I mean, the idea is if this was a weekly series and like every Thursday I could pop down and watch the show would be just phenomenal. But until it happens, it hasn't. So that's kind of my take on it.
Well, that's cool. That's exciting. Well, I wanted to ask you, related to that, have you ever thought about the idea of your books being in a Broadway musical? Because now just follow with me here a second. I don't know if you've seen Hugh Jackman, Wolverine, right? That Wolverine can sing and dance. So what do you think? Michael Talbot, Zombie Fallout, right on Broadway.
This would be the first time that I have ever heard those words together. So kudos to you. Hey man, if someone presented a project and they wanted to do it, it gained traction. It surely wouldn't meet any resistance from me.
All right. Well, Hollywood, or I guess the Broadway producers out there, this is you've been alerted. Get on it.
Get on it, man.
All right. Well,
that's funny.
I was just thinking about it last night. I was like, that potentially could be amazing.
Oh, just think the whole song about a peephole.
Well, we're getting near the end of the show, and that can mean only one thing. Welcome to the Rorschach round, where we use ambiguously odd questions to delve deeper into the minds of these amazing authors. Let's get started.
Fantastic. This always goes well.
So, Mark, if you're ready, we will begin.
All righty.
Okay. So and I like to begin with this one just because it sets the tone for the pathology.
Oh, fantastic.
Has anyone ever made you mad in real life that you subsequently killed in a book?
Oh yeah, without a doubt. It's a very nice way to get some of them negative feelings out of yourself.
So as you mentioned earlier, it's kind of a cathartic experience.
For sure. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely better than going to jail.
Absolutely agree. Would it be possible? Can you name a character? We don't have to know the real life person, but what about a name of a character that this occurrence has happened to?
We can use the word Paul. All
right, Paul, got it. So people in Mark's life, be warned. You too, if you make him mad, could end up just like Paul. You could be the next Paul. Okay, so the next series of questions is a speed round. So don't think about the answer too much, just go with it. That gets past the critical thought, deep into the emotions.
You're assuming I'm quick thinking, but okay.
Well, as quick as can be. Hey, here we go. Look or leap first?
Oh, leap.
Okay. Love or respect?
Love.
Thinking or feeling?
Feeling.
Action or observation?
Observation.
Blood or brains?
Brains.
There we go. All right. I think we've assembled the complete psychological profile.
And people in white will be knocking on your door shortly.
Right. Oh, that's the doorbell. No. All right. Well, that was awesome. Thank you, Mark. Before we go, I wanted to find out, do you have any projects that we should be on the lookout for?
Thanks, Will. I mean, I appreciate you having me on. I have Demon Fallout. It's coming out on Tuesday, as a matter of fact.
Cool.
The A Shrouded World 3 I wrote with the awesome John O'Brien, I think is scheduled sometime in December. I got Zombie Fallout 11 is heading off to the editor next week. I think I said that earlier. Indian Hill 7, the final chapter of that series, is sitting on Audible's desk right now. So I will have a date for that soon. So I think that kind of sums up what I got going on right now.
Awesome. You got a lot coming out then. That's super cool.
Yeah, I mean, and like I said, I mean, something's always continually in the process. I don't sit around for 6 months and get into the next project. It's just not something I feel like I can afford to do.
Right. Because the bills don't sit around for 6 months waiting to be paid.
Wouldn't that be fantastic?
Right. And I want to find out, where can fans and listeners and readers find out more about you and what you do?
MarkTufo.com is a decent place to stop. I am on Facebook. I got my author page, my personal page, where it's kind of boring there, but I got a fan page where you can get on there and talk with folks, and then there's actually a spoiler page as well. Like if you've read some of the books and you kind of want to ask some questions without giving stuff away, you can go on there as well. But super active. You can even send me an email, mark_tufo@yahoo.com, and I try to respond within 48 hours as best I can. Yeah, super accessible.
Awesome. Well, I'd love to have you back on the show down the road so we can check in with what you're up to.
Yeah, I appreciate it, man. I appreciate your understanding too. I know I had a time zone malfunction in my head the last time we tried to do this, so I appreciate you not just going, screw this dude, he's too much freaking high maintenance. So thank you for that.
Hey, no problem at all. It's living in different time zones, plus with the time changes and stuff, it all becomes somewhat of a computation.
Yeah, especially up here in Maine, man. It's already getting dark. And it's, oh my gosh, just a little after 3.
Oh, wow. Well, you got to get out there and soak some of that up while you can. So thank you, Mark. Just wanted to say it again. Thank you so much for coming on the show. It's been a lot of fun.
Thanks, Will. I appreciate it, brother.
So I hope you enjoyed that interview as much as I did. Thank you, Mark, so much for coming on. That was a real blast. And if you want to find any of the links mentioned in the show today, you can, as usual, find them over on my website at www.williamoday.com/7, the number 7. And be sure to join us next week when we chat with Jacqueline Druga, who I am going to unofficially be calling the queen of the post-apocalyptic genre. I mean, really, if you read in the genre, you know it's packed with guys, but where are the ladies? Well, we're going to get to that with Jacqueline. And besides writing stories, like for books, she's actually also a screenwriter. And if I'm not mistaken, I think she actually even stars in some of her own movies. So that's going to be a totally awesome discussion, which we will be bringing you next week. That's it for today. If you would like to be sure to never miss a show and always have them immediately available on your device of choice, you can subscribe by going to www.williamoday.com/iTunes. And if you enjoyed the show, I would so appreciate a rating and review on iTunes. They both help with store visibility, and they also let other listeners know if this show is something that they might be interested in checking out. And I've made it easy to access both of those by going to the same link on my website, www.williamoday.com/iTunes. That will have a link there that you can jump over to either subscribe and or maybe all three, rate and review the show. So I would so appreciate that. Thank you so much. That's it for now. We'll see you next week.
Thanks for listening to the OMG Book Show. You can find out more at www.williamoday.com.